people die, in some cultures, they say you die twice, once when you take your final breath and the second time when people stop saying your name.
And even though it seems like a small thing to you, it's a huge thing for us. And it just has a huge impact.
Yeah, it's a big problem right now that people are not standing up, but I think there is change.
Even when things were good before, I lived in this constant state of fear that they'd be taken away from me.
It's okay to have a moral compass and ethics, but it's hard to stand up when you need to, which is what you've done.
And we can't find hope from each other because we're all kind of in this world. The only place we can find from each other, we can find determination, we can find fire, we can find drive, but hope we can only find from outside the Jewish community. Welcome everybody to another episode of Resilient Riches. Today we have the beautiful, amazing, incredible new business owner, amazing advocate for the Jewish community, and just incredible person that everybody's wanted to hear from, Erin Molan, all the way from Australia. I love the brick background. We had one before and people protested us and we said we'd get it away. But Erin, thank you so much for coming on. Fake. Yeah, ours is fake. Hers is real. Like, it's a different story. But Erin, thank you so much for coming.
Bless you. I've got some options that I bought from Temu that are under my desk that do look fake. This one I paid a lot for and got professionals to put it in, so hopefully it looks better than yours.
It looks way better than ours.
But I also feel like I look like I'm in a dungeon or something. But bless you for your very kind words. It's what a year and a half for everyone, huh? And I wish, and this is rare for me to say, but I wish that I wasn't special in this instance. I wish that I was one of millions of voices saying exactly the same thing, because that's the way it should be. But unfortunately, it's not the way it is. So thank you for having me. And it's a privilege to stand with you and your people.
Thank you. And so, Erin, before we get started, I know you have your father is like an incredible, I was reading his story, and he has such an incredible story. So it really speaks to your resilience. Can you give us your background, how you got to this place, and all of a sudden you're just like this, the new face of this amazing movement of like humanity and like freedom. And I just had a conversation with Van Jones, if you know Van Jones, the reporter, reporter. So he also was just like talking about, like, he's like, we need more faces talking about this and being like pro-humanity and pro-existence. So can you give us your background, how you got to this point?
Absolutely. I think, you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned my dad. He was such a big part of my life and one of the most incredibly impressive human beings that I've ever encountered. And I'm obviously a little bit biased, but he was phenomenal.
Says the same thing about me. Yeah, yours says the same thing about me.
I bet. Oh, wait. Is that your son? I thought it was
son-father podcast.
I love that so much. Well, see, it's the most beautiful thing, right? And I feel like we lost Dad a couple of years ago now to cancer. And I still feel the exact same amount of pain that I felt the day we lost him. But it's such a privilege to feel that every day. And I would not give it up for a second, because it meant that I had the most incredible dad in the world. So I love that you guys are obviously very close and you do this together, because he and I used to do this together. He would come on my show on Sky News and talk about military defense. So he was a major general in the army. He was also then an Australian senator, and he actually holds a record for most individual votes of any politician in Australian history. Wow. So he was phenomenal in every way. But what made him very special is not so much that he achieved great things, because he did, but it was his moral compass. He was his ability to do the right thing at the most difficult times, regardless of who was watching, regardless of whether the world was watching or no one was watching, was mind-blowing. He was such a man.
Because that's the hard part. It's okay to have a moral compass and ethics, but it's hard to stand up when you need to, which is what you've done.
Absolutely. And that's, it's interesting. I feel when Dad first died and everyone knew how close we were, people would say to me, oh, you can still talk to him, he's still there. And I never felt that. And we weren't really a kind of spiritual family or, a family that would talk about or feel that kind of thing. But since this all happened, I felt as close to him as I have since he died. And I hope that he is proud, and people who know him well in this country and know him well overseas reference him constantly when they say to me, thank you, you're incredible. Your dad would be so proud. And I feel like that to me, when people die, in some cultures, they say you die twice, once when you take your final breath and the second time when people stop saying your name. And I made a promise to my dad that he will never die twice. So I love talking about him. I talk about him. People probably think I have daddy issues. I don't. I don't think. But I talk about him all the time because he's had the most profound impact on my life. And he was an incredible ally of Israel and the Jewish community. He went over
It's
there
a
in
funny thing that what you
2014.
say, because in the Jewish religion, every year we remember the death of our parent. Like my mother passed away, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, and her Yortzeit, we call it, the remembrance, is coming up on the
Yeah,
18th. So you have a whole special celebration, an event, not celebration, but you have a
yeah,
whole event. So it's something you remember. And on that day, I mean, Ear hasn't really experienced it, but I always feel like a closeness closer to my mother at that time. It's like she's still around. It's kind of weird.
yeah. No, I love that. I think anything that, because everyone's so individual in how they handle it and how they deal with it. And but yeah, I don't ever want to move away from it, or try and forget. Or I mean, I talk about him, as I said, every single day. So there are so many parts of your culture that are so beautiful like that, and of your religion that are so beautiful like that. But yeah, he's incredible, and I feel like if I can be 1/10 of the human being that he was, then I'll be doing okay. And every day I hope to make him proud, and I think that at the moment I am. I haven't always in the past. I was a little bit naughty in my teenage years, so I
Goes with the
did
You're a
try.
mother.
territory.
You're a
It goes
mother
with the
now. That's
territory.
good.
Exactly.
So I have a bunch of questions for you, and that our audience is also going to have questions, and probably the whole world is going to have questions for you. So first is the controversial question. Everyone says that the departure from Sky News was budget cuts, but some people say, or most people are saying, it's because of your unbelievably articulate stance of being, as you said, you're not pro-Israel, you're pro-humanity and against barbarism. So, can you give us an exclusive on what actually happened at that point?
Look, I'd love to, but to be honest, all I can say is what I was told, and I didn't see it coming. I I had no idea. It was a very hard thing to hear at the time. I was told it was budget cuts, and look, it would be very hard for me to believe it had anything to do with my stance, because there are other people on that network who are incredible in this space. So look, that I think because I was so publicly pro-Israel, then all of a sudden I was sacked. People put two and two together, but that there's not one part of me that believes
Really?
that
'Cause
that was
I
involved.
put that two and two together from the beginning.
Yeah, like a lot of people did, and I understand why, because I guess it does happen. But Sky News Australia is a very unique network, and it's not even pro-Israel. They're anti-terror, and they've got a lot of very powerful voices who speak in a very similar way to me. So look, it's part of it. It's the first time I've been. Last year I was sacked from jobs for the first time in my life, and basically lost every job I had at the start of the year last year. So it was one of those, after 20 years in the media, it was somewhat terrifying at first, but I think, I had a day where I just went, holy shit. And then I stopped and went, wait a minute, my stuff is going viral. People are resonating with it. There is value in what I do. If they don't see value, that doesn't mean I don't have value. And I thought, they provide a studio and a time slot and a platform, fine, but I write what I say. I talk from the heart. It's all me. So I can do this without them. And that's when, instead of kind of going into the fetal position in the corner and going, oh my gosh, I went, you know what? Stuff it. I'm going to keep going, and I'll do it myself. And that's what I've kind of started to do over the past couple of months. And it's been honestly the greatest gift I could have ever been given, is
Yeah.
what happened to me at the end of last year.
Well, it's probably something to do with your father and how he was able to basically being a politician is pretty entrepreneurial. You're basically like going off in the world, and no one's going to hire you. You might get fired, and like you kind of build your own business. But you could have gotten a job anywhere, but you chose to go into business
Well,
ownership. So why'd you do that?
I mean, I could have, like, I had offers from other networks. I had offers from networks here in Australia and overseas. But I think once I had a look into this space, because even when I was on Sky, people would immediately post my clips onto X or onto Instagram, and it'd get millions of views. And I would think, okay, so that's clearly where the future is, or that's where the biggest viewership is. So to be honest, the thought of working for someone else, I made this kind of promise to myself that I will never put myself back in a position where someone can call me a week out from my last show and say, that's it, we're done. And your whole world can fall apart, essentially. Your ability to pay your mortgage, your ability to do everything that you assumed was just going to continue on suddenly stops. And I thought, you know what? I don't ever want to give anyone that kind of power over me ever again. So instead of going back into another network job where I'm vulnerable to the exact same thing happening, because it happens, there's people in Australia, the guy who just won the gold Logie in Australia, which is our highest honor, Larry Emder, he jokes he's the most sacked host on Australian television. He's had more shows cancelled and he's been sacked more than anyone else, but he's our number one most popular host. So it's part and parcel of the industry. But I just, yeah, didn't find it that enjoyable. So I thought, if I can set up my own thing, and I've got, YouTube, I'm hosting a show on X, I do my own content on X, a heap of other things, traveling the world now, speaking. I'm working with, I don't know if I can even say, but, doing some stuff with the hostage envoy as well, over in America. So the more things I can do, and everything I'm doing now is true, it is authentic, it is, no one can tell me what to say. No one can tell me how to say it. No one can tell me what to wear. That stuff used to drive me spare. And now every single thing I do is me, my platform, only representing me. So the freedom that I've got, and I get to walk my daughter to school every morning. I get to pick her up every afternoon. I'm present when I'm with her. I'll work my ass off whenever she's at school. I'll work overnight. But now I get to be a full-time mum, as well as busier than I've ever been, doing things that are so fulfilling, because this I care about deeply. I care about what's happening in the Middle East. I care about the world reaction. I care about what is starting to put its tentacles into the rest of the world in terms of this ideology, this terrorism, this threat. And I care deeply about exposing it and trying to shift the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, the Islamist regime and the Islamist movement is basically, their whole goal is to wipe out the West. And you're standing in its way.
But I always felt like, I felt at the beginning after October 7th that Australia was like actually pretty pro-Israel and on on our side. I thought that was it. But then you see a lot of protests against it, and that whole thing. I don't know if, I'm sure you saw it, that LinkedIn with the nurses on LinkedIn where they talked about killing Jews and everything. I mean, that to me it said, what is Australia like? It seemed like a little schizophrenic. That what is, I mean, are they pro or are they anti? I couldn't really figure it out.
It's a great question. And this is the analogy that I use. So I was a sports host for 15 years before entering into kind of commentary and foreign affairs, politics, et cetera, et cetera. And when I used to host the race cars, so there was a Bathurst 1000, a very famous race that would go for like 10 or 12 hours. And at the end of the day, I'd have to put that into a 1 minute 20 package for the news. So most cars would go around perfectly, beautifully, and they would not feature in my package. The 3 cars that would have massive crashes would be all I'd show, because I only had 1minute 20 to show the most exciting, the thing that people are going to watch, the thing that's going to shock people. So when people look at news and stuff coming out of Australia, it does not represent the vast majority of Australians. And I am so confident in that. I really am. The issue is that sometimes Aussies can just be lazy. We're not big protesters, the vast majority of us. We're not going to get, it doesn't mean we don't care, but we're a culture that doesn't necessarily go out and show when we do care. There is a small part who are vile, anti-Semitic, pro-terror, absolutely. And because they're loud and it's their entire existence, they take up all the media space. So look, we definitely have a problem here.
I think that's the same here. I mean, you get these kind of protesters, they block off Cooper Union, or they go in Barnard School, they took over a room. I mean, that's all you ever hear about it. You think
exactly.
It's millions of people that are protesting.
It's not. And then
not.
Companies and businesses start to, like people, like you're, how do you handle having such a controversial stance? I'm like, point out what I've ever said that is controversial. Condemn terrorism, don't kidnap people, don't slaughter people, and then don't go back and hide amongst your women and your children. Oh, and don't put launch pads in your living rooms to send rockets to those people.
All good advice. Good advice.
Absolutely. Clearly it's not being taken up. But, this is the thing that's crazy. So, but then companies and people start to think, oh, that's actually what people think, and we better not touch this person, because no, they've got it completely backwards. They are the controversial ones. They are the minority. And the issue is, when we're all silent, as most inherently good people are silent, not because they're malicious, not even because they're lazy. A lot of them, it's cost of living crisis, single parents, they're working 2 jobs. They don't have capacity. They hear something in the media. They think, oh, God, that's awful. And then they go about their day. They don't think about it again. It feels too far away. So I think we've got the silent majority. It's now past the point where we can just sit back
Well, we
and
see
let
what
it all
happened in the
sort
United
out.
States with the election. I was in a restaurant in Tel Aviv after the November after October 7th, and I'm there with the waitress there, and she says, and we're talking obviously, and she says, she just says to me, I think the whole world hates us. And I think, we travel a lot for business, and there's a lot of people that just come up to me. See, I always wear a kippah. They come up
Yeah.
to me and they say, we're on your side. Thank you for whatever you're wearing, your kippah and whatever. And I said to her, there's a lot of support, but it's quiet. But they're not, you hear the loud things, but I think that, and that's what people voted for in the last election in
But
November because they're sick of it.
you're right. In Australia, something that reassures me that I'm right about the vast majority. There's this party, the Greens Party, who are vile in so many ways. They've got people who won't condemn it. They've essentially turned what was meant to be an environmental party into this party that is standing against Israel and is, like their people will stand with these awful anti-Semitic signs, etc., etc. It's overtaken the whole party basically. There's been 3 or 4 elections, by-elections, local elections that have occurred since October 7, and the Greens have almost been wiped out. Like people are responding. The vast majority are at the ballot box saying, "No, not for me," and that reassures me immensely that there is a shift away from this, and that Australians, they don't speak for us. Australians are good, decent people who believe in freedom, peace, democracy, all those wonderful things. I just wish some of them would be a little louder sometimes.
Yeah, it's a big problem right now that people are not standing up. But I think there is change. I think things
Yeah.
are actually moving. Like we had the Arab delegation on the other day, and they were talking about even at their rallies, like they used to go and speak in universities, and next thing you know, a huge amount of protesters would come, and they said they go back to the same universities, and the SJP members came up to them like, "Hey, I'm actually sorry. Like I actually did not realize who I was supporting." And they're
Well,
like, we apologize. And people are waking up. I think after the Bebas family, things really changed.
one of the greatest bits of correspondence, and I get thousands, I think, a day, some are death threats, great. A lot are from incredible Jewish Israeli people, and it's beautiful. The ones that matter the most to me, I got this as an example from a miner, a guy who works down the mine, just an average Aussie bloke, sent me an email a little while back and said, "Hi, Erin. I just watched one of your clips and I wanted to let you know that my morals and my values have not changed, but the side I now realize they align with has. Thank you."
Wow.
And that, that to me is, I mean, I love you guys and I love people who love me, but I'm preaching to the converted, right? Like my voice is wasted speaking to people who already understand how this all
I,
works. When I can reach those people,
I will disagree with you. I will disagree with you because
please do.
the Jewish community
He's good at
right
that.
now, the Jewish community is having a very, very difficult time finding
No,
hope. And
really
we
good
can't
point.
find hope from each other because we're all kind of in this world. The only place we can find from each other, we can find determination, we can find fire, we can find drive, but hope we can only find from outside the Jewish community.
Oh, that's beautiful. If you think that I can carry that even in a little way, that means
And
a lot.
it's not just you. It's everybody that stands with us. It's the Black community. It's everybody. It's the Muslim community. It's the Christian community. It's the Aussie community. It's the cool accents that you guys had that probably give us extra hope, and like these slang things that my dad and I were like, we don't know what that means, but that sounds awesome. And like we think we can translate it quickly
We
with
think,
ChatGPT. We're
don't look it up in the
ChatGPTing
dictionary
quickly.
always. You
The
might
captions, we need the
misinterpret.
captions.
The
Can I
captions
tell
are-
you something I do? Like if I'm driving and I live in quite a Jewish area, which is, lucky given my stance on this issue. But I often drive around and anyone now that I see, if I'm at airports, if I'm on planes, if I see anyone wearing a kippah or anything that is identifiably Jewish, and it's kind of changed because prior to October 7, straight after, the few months I would do exactly the same thing because my heart would just break and I would smile at them or give them a thumbs up or just something to make them feel comfortable or that they were valued or that we didn't hate them or, now it's slightly different because most of them know who I am and kind of will seek me out first, which is lovely as well. But I have this, I'll be driving and if I see a couple of people walking and it probably scares the hell out of them, but I'll put down the window and I'll be like, "Love you." And my daughter gets so embarrassed as a 6-year-old. And she then says to me, "I thought we weren't meant to yell out the window." I'm like, there are exceptions, honey. There's a community that needs our support, because I know a lot of these people, a lot of mums at my daughter's school. There's a lot of Jewish kids at my daughter's school, and I speak to them every morning, and people are hurting, people are broken, people are terrified for their kids, people are just, their soul destroyed, but not defeated at all. Your community is incredible. You are never defeated, but I feel like anything that people can do, even in a little way, that just says you are one of us, you're our community, we stand with you, I think makes
That's
a huge
absolutely
difference.
true. And even though it seems like a small thing to you, it's a huge thing for us. And it just has a huge impact. And even like I would say, I would also disagree with you, because you never know who you're speaking to. It could be somebody
And this is a
that's
pylon.
I'm sorry, we set you up. This is
well,
the.
you know.
This
But
is
there's some people
Zelensky
that could be,
dating.
I
could be on
know
the
that's I was waiting
borderline.
for you.
Some
You're the
people,
journalist. We wanted you to report on it.
some people could be on the borderline, and you don't
No,
know.
you're
Like, you
right.
could sway, one way or another. They don't. Some people don't even know themselves. I mean, it's just
No, it's a really
this
good
whole
point.
thing. It's whole last couple of years. It's just been so nuts.
So
Right.
Erin, where do you see? So okay, you go off on your own, and you decided to open up 69x minutes, right?
So I'm hosting that. So it's done by a big media company. So I can't take credit for creating it.
Okay.
Even though when I saw Elon Musk doing the tweet about it a while back, I screenshot it and sent it to my mom. I sent it to Linda, who runs X, saying, I would be perfect for this. And then kind of no one replied, which was somewhat awkward. And then literally, I think maybe 3 weeks later, I get a message from someone from the team saying, do you want to do a segment? The next day, actually, do you want to host it? And I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect gig for me. So I'm so excited about it. We had the premiere episode about 10 days ago, which has had over 10 million views and growing. So it's incredible.
Yeah, on YouTube, you had your first video, 1.5 million views, right?
Well, there's been it's even my stuff on Sky used to go really well on YouTube. Sky do really well on YouTube as well. So now I'm growing my own and nearly at 50,000 subscribers. So it's only been like 6 weeks. So do you know what? I'm blown away by the support, and I genuinely mean this. For me, getting my message out is the thing that drives anything and everything. Like, I don't think I'm trying to think if I've been paid by anyone since I left Sky, and I don't think I have.
No, you'll get there
You might
eventually.
want to think about that.
No, but I mean, that doesn't matter.
Elon can write you a couple checks.
It's only money. It's only
exactly.
My father used to say that. My father used to say it's only money, but then he would say $1's a lot when you don't have it.
So what would you say, Erin, to people who are trying to leave their traditional business, being told what to do, living this dream for others, but want to go off on their own and take this plunge into no money, unknown? How would you inspire those people? Because that's a really big part of our audience.
I would say don't, because I don't want the competition. Don't. It's hell on earth. No. In all honesty, it is apart from not quite earning a living yet from it. And we're building. There is nothing like doing something that is your passion. And I used to always think people would say when I was younger, get a job that is your passion and that you love, and then you won't work a day in your life, blah, blah, blah. And then I heard someone else say something to the effect of, no, do what you're really good at for a job, and then you can follow your passion. And I feel like I've been somewhat good at my job for 20 years, and I have now, I'm in a position where I can afford to explore and not be dependent on money in the short term. Yeah. So now I'm doing my passion, and if I can then turn that into a job, I feel like I've combined the two of them, because before I was doing lots of different media, not all of it was my passion. Different segments, different shows that I was hosting, all amazing. But this space, this political commentary, this national security, foreign affairs is my passion. And I figure after 20 years, I've earned the right to see if I can turn this into the sole way that I make a living. And that's what I'm trying to do. And it's amazing. It's like there's no security. There's no, it's scary. It's harder work than anything I've done before. And I've always been an incredibly hard worker. But I love it. I get excited. All I do at home is watch Fox News. I do watch other networks, so I'm not in an echo chamber as well, but I read articles. I'm consumed by this. I do this for fun. I have no life. I'm a single mom with a 6-year-old. I don't go on dates. I don't go to the, parties. I don't
Yeah, I'm
do
sure. I'm
anything.
sure people aren't even asking you for
No,
dates. I'm
of
sure it's
course
Okay,
really
not.
I
big.
get
It's
asked on a
horrible.
I'm
lot
sure.
of
I'm sure
I'm sure no,
you're
everybody just
I
ignores you when you walk
really
into a
try.
room
Yeah,
or
no, they
something.
don't even like look at it. They go,
Who's
"What are
that?
those?
Oh,
What are those huge blue eyes?" I don't even like that
and I
vibe.
didn't even try for you guys today. Wait till I get hair and makeup and my hair's done
Oh,
and
that would have been nice if you would have tried, Erin. It would have been nice.
no, look, I do get, and this is the first time I've actually been single as an adult. Would you believe that? So
Yes.
as an adult, first time on my own. So I came out of a relationship end of last year, and it's this crazy new world. So to be honest, no desire whatsoever, but you can keep the requests coming in because it does make me feel a
you'll
little
hold
bit
on to them when
less
you're ready.
of a
All
loser.
right, Erin, we have a final question before your plug, and I know you got to run. But you've had such an amazing story, and it's just so, and it's like a new story, like it's a rebirth story. It's really incredible. It's probably something to do with your father and that living through
It's
you.
all about the father. Don't you know
All
that
about
yet?
the
Yeah.
father.
Well,
So you've
the most
what would
powerful
be
people in the world.
Keep telling him,
exactly
but he doesn't. At least he doesn't believe it.
Listen to
what
your
would
dad.
it's a lot. He's got a lot of advice, and not all of it's great.
I can
Um,
tell.
It's all
but
good.
so
That's the problem. He doesn't realize.
what would be your defining moment in your life that allowed you to be so resilient, that allowed you to take on these hits and allowed you to keep going and keep that amazing personality and constantly driving forward? And what was that moment in your life?
Oh, it's such a great question. I don't know if it's been. I know that there's been pivotal moments as there is in everyone's life, and I think for me, and no, I do know the moment, to be honest, because I people used to always say that I was resilient because I'd always, and I was the first woman to do lots of things, and I got annihilated online and all these kind of things that I'd have to, I'd always front up, and I was so brave and all these kind of things. But what people didn't understand is that away from the camera, I was a complete mess. So for 20 years, 18 years of my public life, I lived in this heightened state of anxiety, of fear. I was constantly on edge. I was terrified of bad articles coming out, being smashed publicly. I was terrified of what people thought of me. I was terrified of failing. I was terrified of everything. And when Dad died, I remember going into the hospital. We're in the hospital for the last couple of weeks. Excuse me. Um, so we're in the hospital for the last couple of weeks, and as we're walking out at one stage, I'm one of three siblings. Dad said, "Oh, can you stay back? Stay back for a second." And I kind of looked at my siblings and Mum, and they all walked out. And anyway, he was very close to the end, but he said, "You look awful," and it makes me really sad. And I remember, I was obviously very upset because, like it's not. I was hoping he'd say, "You're my favorite." Like,
I'm going to
we've
give
had
you all
this.
my money.
Yes, exactly. I'm leaving everything to you. But he didn't.
Don't tell them though.
No, well, I went out and they were all waiting there wondering what he'd said. And that was kind of it. He didn't then go into anything else. He just said, "You look awful." And that makes me really sad. And as I went out, I kind of said to him, like, I told them what he'd said. And I said, "And I'm the hot one. So you guys are screwed." Like, go good luck. But driving away from the hospital on that day, I kept looking in the mirror. I was driving back to Sydney to get my little girl and then to come back. And I started to think, he's right. Yes, I was losing my dad and like I'm never going to be in a good place, but I'm so miserable inside. I don't look after myself. I don't drink enough water. I'm on edge constantly, and I was before he got sick and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, you know what? The promise I'm going to make to him is that I will get myself happy and well and healthy. And I then reached out to a psychologist and I said, I sent her a message saying, "I don't know how to survive my dad dying. Can you help me?" And I've never seen a psychologist before. And she, we did our first session that day and she kind of said, I think after about 2 minutes, she's like, "Girl, you need a hell of a lot more help than just losing your daddy." I was like, "Yeah, thanks, Scoop." So I started drinking a shitload of water. I started seeing her. I did all this. We're not a therapy family. We don't talk about our feelings. I gave her a year of my life to deal with so much shit. And it was brutal. And she called me out and it was horrible at times. But I came out of that about a year ago now as a completely different person. And I remember Mum saying to me when, I was at her place and I smiled and she said, "I think that's the first real smile I've seen from you in." And to me, that that's the greatest gift that anyone could have given me. And that's what I think Dad's message to me was.
And you
And I'm
probably
now in this
couldn't be
place.
doing what you're doing now without that.
I couldn't. I promise you. The old me was too scared because I was scared of backlash. I was scared of, I might have been faux brave, as in, I'd say things, but I'd be thinking, okay, I can do this because, but then there won't be that, I was always calculating risk. And now I just do whatever I feel is right. And I don't care what the price that I pay is. I don't care what the cost
But that's
is.
a gift your father gave you, really. That's the gift your father gave you.
100%. And I now, as you can see, I still love wine, but I drink less of it and I drink a lot more water. So I feel like that, to me, that one comment that hurt me deeply changed the entire life. And I now have peace in my life. I now enjoy, even when things were good before, I lived in this constant state of fear that they'd be taken away from me, or I'd be sacked, or it would end. And then when I got sacked, I think that was the other thing. I went, this is the only thing I have feared, apart from anything happening to my child, for 20 years, publicly being sacked. I lived in fear of it daily. And when it happened, I was like, it's not actually that bad. People are really nice. And also, no one gives a shit, Erin. Like, the world doesn't revolve around you. People have their own problems. And so I escaped from this prison of public perception that I've lived in my whole life. I couldn't have lost anything more than I lost last year. And the freedom, and I feel like I'm just, sounds so wanky. And Dad, I'm so sorry, because you'd kill me if you heard me say this. I'm authentically myself, living my authentic self.
It's amazing.
And it's beautiful. I feel
what you should not do? You should not yell to the Jews, "You look terrible." Like, don't give them that advice. Like, keep it in the love thing. Like,
Too many
you're
people
like, "Oh,
that
I'm
do that
awakening
already.
you." Like, I'm trying to teach you. Like, you should not do that. I'm just going to be that unsolicited piece of
We
advice.
have people looking after that part of it already. Don't worry about that.
Do you know what? I keep thinking he was on so much medication. He probably thought I was a nurse or something. But it still was the greatest gift he could have ever given it to me, even if he didn't mean to. But I feel like there's that would be the pivotal moment, I guess, which is a bizarre one. But here I am.
Here you are. Erin, how can people find you? How can people subscribe?
You.
We have 3,000 subscribers, so we'd love for all 3,000 of them to come on. And then we have a wonderful
50,000.
Not 50,000,
well,
but we have a wonderful Spotify following, which is really, really amazing.
I love that. Well, I don't have any of that. So YouTube, I've got, so subscribe at Erin_Molan, and I will tell my audience to subscribe to you guys as well. And obviously people are watching it, but if I share a bit, what's yours? How do people subscribe to you?
People can subscribe to Resilient Riches or Climbing Financial, but we'll collaborate with you and we'll put
perfect, amazing.
Up.
And then Instagram, Erin Molan, Erin Molan. Yeah, it's pretty basic. I'm not overly creative in that space, but guys, thank you for your incredible voice and everything that you do in this space.
Thank you so much, and Erin, we look forward to you. When you come to New York, we can fill a room. We'll get the 600 people. We had Michael Rappaport, 550 people, but on October,
I would own him. I'd eat him for breakfast, that bloke.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm looking for competition. But on October 7th, I pulled off over 5,000 people closing off Park Avenue. It was the largest Torah dedication in U.S. history. So I pulled that off, and I was very proud of myself. But when you come, we'd love to host you. We'd love to bring you into the community. And we're really excited for you.
You should come.
Yeah,
I would love to. I will, definitely. I'll definitely be there this year, so I will let you guys know.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Erin Molan again, the amazing, incredible, and the thing that I just want to stress the most is just so amazing what you are doing, and just you don't realize how much light you're giving and how much hope you're giving to people. So that's really what I want people to take away from, and we love your story and an amazing tribute to your father.
Thank you so much, and your community gives me hope. So thank you, and listen to your dad.
Yeah, listen to your father.
A lot of bad advice.
He's never wrong. In fact, my dad was wrong when it came to dating advice. That was it. Not good. Everything else.
Nobody's perfect.
No. 100%.
Bye, my loves. Do you want me? Do I